Here's how to make square toe slippers. Start by making sure your pattern was printed at 100% scale. Double check the inch and centimeter markers against your ruler. Cut out the pattern pieces along the outer solid line. On the insole board, sock lining, and Vamp, there are reference lines. These are represented by the dotted lines and show you where to place your components. Add stencil marks to the patterns by cutting in small intervals along the dotted lines and then wiggling the blade to create these hill-shaped slits. Trace and cut out all materials, including the foam, the insole board, sock lining, outsole, cork, and Vamp. For the cork, cut about 3/4 of the way towards the toe. Then trace the reference lines on the insole board, the bottom of the sock lining, and the top and bottom of the Vamp. On the bottom of the Vamp, also add markings 1/4 inch inward from the reference lines. This shows you where to glue. You will end up with 2 of each of the following: Vamp, sock lining, foam, insole board, outsole, and cork. You can skive the edges of the sock lining and Vamp to reduce the bulk. Next, glue the top of the insole board and the bottom of the foam. You will be putting these together to create the insole board unit. Center the foam and follow the reference lines. Foam has a tendency to stretch, so if your foam goes over the edge of your reference lines, you can trim the excess. To attach the sock lining, glue the top, outer edge, and bottom perimeter of the insole board unit. Make sure to glue in the crevice between the foam and the insole board. Then glue the back of the sock lining. To attach the sock lining, start at the toe and work your way down. Press flat through the center, and then let the sock lining fall naturally around the edges, letting the reference lines guide you. Along the medial side of the arch, cut notches every 1/4 inch to help the sock lining lay flat. Attach the sock lining underneath the insole board by pleating the edges around the toe and the heel. This follows a similar pattern to lasting. The goal is to pleat the fabric underneath the insole board unit by gently pulling and tucking the sock lining. Cut off any excess and sand down. Then hammer flat. Use your finger to press the sock lining into the crevice between the foam and the insole board. Figure out where your Vamp will be placed by following the reference lines. First, place the toe, and then use the reference lines to guide the sides. Use a silver pen to mark where the edge of the Vamp ends. This is where you will glue. Check the right and left side to make sure they are the same. To attach the Vamp, glue the insole board unit 1/4 inch around the upper perimeter, as well as around the side and bottom perimeters. Remember to only glue up to the silver pen demarcating the Vamp placement. Then glue the Vamp from the outer edge in towards the center, stopping at the markings we made 1/4 inch past the reference lines. To place the Vamp, start at the toe and follow the reference lines to guide the edges. At this point, you can try on the slipper and see if you need to make any adjustments. For example, if your foot is narrow, you might want to tuck in the edges of the Vamp under further. Once you are happy with the placement, you can repeat the steps used to attach the sock lining. Pleat the Vamp underneath the insole board unit, cut excess, sand, and hammer. Set a divider to 1/4 inch. Use this to mark 1/4 inch in from the edge of the insole board unit. This should fall in the crevice between the insole board and the foam. You can intensify the line by using a silver pen. Hole punch along this line using a pricking fork, mallet, and mat. It is helpful to punch tilting the fork inwards so that it does not fall off the edge of the insole board. Now you are ready to start stitching. Measure the thread 3 times the perimeter of the slipper, generously. Thread the eye of the needle of the Speedy Stitcher and pull the thread halfway through. If your upper material folds like this, you might want to add clips along the arch of the foot to keep the upper tight. Start stitching on the medial side at the arch of the foot, keeping the curve of the Speedy Stitcher needle towards you. Press the needle through one of the punched holes and then pull half of the thread through. Move the needle to the next hole away from you, push it through, and pull out halfway. This creates a small loop that you can widen. Use 2 fingers to pull the bottom thread through the loop. Then remove the needle and repeat around the entire slipper. You can find further information and more tips and tricks on how to speedy stitch in our free guide included with this course. When you have finished stitching, tie a double knot and cut the threads, leaving about 1 inch. Burn the knot and hammer down to secure. Then tape down the excess threads. Sand between the stitch and the outer edge of the insole board unit. To create the outsole, glue the cork and the top of the outsole. Attach the cork and sand the edge to create a smooth transition. You can use sandpaper or a rasp. Your outsole should look like this with the cork sloped down towards the toe. Make sure the shape of the outsole unit matches the upper unit. Finally, glue the top of the outsole and the bottom of the upper unit. Attach by hovering the upper over the outsole to make sure the placement is correct. Once they are aligned, drop the upper onto the outsole and press to secure. If the toes feel a bit tight, you can wet the vamp and use a square toe last, rag, or paper towels to stuff the toe and let it sit. And you're done!